Personally, I mean, that must be difficult dealing with the criticism, public pressure, especially in a town like Toronto where they take their sport so seriously. We're not going to mention the Leafs, especially when we don't, you don't have control necessarily of all outcomes. So how do you deal with that, and how do you keep your team motivated
Yeah.
to sort of get up and start swinging the bat again?
Yeah. I mean, I lean a little bit philosophically when I answer that, and kind of the way I've lived my life, whether you want to call it, ties to ancient, philosophy or dichotomy of control, and kind of focusing my energy on, so, whether it's all the way back to Epictetus and kind of
Yeah.
thinking about dichotomy of control, or whether you want to just think about, the journey for kind of fulfillment and peace that every one of us goes through, like where we find meaning and purpose. Outcomes are largely, not where the fulfillment lies, no matter how much I will never shy away from relentless competitive nature to want to be the best at what we do. I try to direct my and our competitiveness toward perpetual improvement, towards seeking, the never ending journey of trying to be the best run, highest performing team, culture, organization that we can possibly be. And that pursuit is where the meaning lies. That pursuit is where being a teammate to the people that I work with, is finds the greatest meaning and purpose. And focusing on that pursuit, the people obviously in sports talk a lot about the process, is where the comfort lies when you go through the ups and downs. There will never be a day that losing feels good. I mean, I'm 34 years in, and I still feel differently a day after a loss than I do a day after a win. I'd like to say I'm a better human being than that and not impacted by it. It ain't true. I mean, I'm a competitive human being. I want to win, but I quickly recalibrate. I get back to thinking about what I can control. I understand there is a delineation between losing and getting beat. And I don't like to lose, but getting beat on 162 games is going to happen. So we can talk about what that means. I'm assuming you can figure that out for yourselves, but there are going to be situations, circumstances, opponents, things that kind of say this is just the nature of what's going to happen. I accept it. The key always is, what do we learn? An after action review. What did we learn? How can we adjust and get better? And then moving forward. And then the other key for me on a personal level is, you can't tie your self-worth and self-esteem to outcomes. So, I don't ever think of myself as a title. I don't think of myself as a sports executive. I think of myself as a dad. I think of myself as a partner. I think of myself as a brother, as a son, as a friend. And that person, the man I am, is the CEO I am, is the leader of the Jays that I am. And so if I were to act differently when I went in the building, getting back to that image of the super decision maker and the charismatic speaker, if I were to become someone different when I went in front of the people I work with than I am when I'm with my daughter and my son, you know, that would not be a sustainable style of leadership. It would not be a sustainable lifestyle, because the losses would crush me, because I would be consumed with what other people thought about me. So, I really do. I mean, I'm deriving my self worth and self esteem from the person I am. The way I lead, is also, similar to the way I parent, although I'm no longer parenting as this is in the same way as because of the age of my kids. But the way I did parent and the way I did coach youth baseball when I coached youth baseball, it's all the same.
Yeah.
It's not different. And so I find the fulfillment, the satisfaction comes from the growth and comes from being part of it, that group of people.
There's so much focus on recruiting talent. You were talking about working with young people, to really help them succeed over the long term. What have you learned from developing young athletes that you can help impart, which is, people are working with teams here,
Yep.
helping them, things that might be helpful in terms of things you could work.
Probably when again, trying to be analogous to kind of businesses, which
Yeah.
I found, since I'm overseeing the baseball and the business side, I'm doing that all the time. Number one, entry level is everything. and that's not necessarily development, but hiring, and it's funny because organizations in general tend to outsource entry level hiring. What I've learned is it's senior leadership needs to be involved in entry level hiring. It's the single most important thing we do. And if you look at Procter and Gamble, and where they've never had a CEO in the history of their organization, 170 years or whatever it is, that didn't get hired at the entry level. It's up or out. So they can't ever have a lapse in talent. And I believe that, everything else takes care of itself when you get the entry level right. On the player side, the draft, Latin America, entry level trades. On the hiring side, interns, because they do a few things. If you obsess and are rigorous and have a great process
Yeah.
for entry level, you'll find values are aligned, you'll create succession, you'll elevate standards, and you'll maintain relevance, by the way, which it's so easy to lose relevance, as you mature as an organization. So the culture they come into is equally important, but obsess about entry level hiring and then make development and growth and something that's not just, again, done twice a year, but a core responsibility of every leader in the organization.